Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Tech with Tiff. In this episode, I sat down with Nick, who most recently held a position as UX researcher at Google. Prior to that, she's worn many different hats, from software developer, data analyst, and so many other roles, which we dive into. Recently, she was impacted by the layoffs at Google, and she shares about her experience through that. Also, I link down below my newsletter, which covers job postings, career tips, and so much more. So make sure to go check it out. All right, let's get started. Hi, Nick. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be back in New York. I mean, it's a bit rainy today, but it's still, the city's always such good energy.
I know. What are you guys doing while you're here?
So we have the podcast today. We did shopping yesterday. And then tomorrow, I don't know. Any recommendations? I know it's going to be really sunny out. Or it's supposed to be.
I mean, you can use my vintage thrifting guide and go around, or
I might take you up on that.
Go to a little park or something. Go to like McCarran and Williamsburg and bop around. I feel like that would be fun.
That would be really fun.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those, when we come to New York, we always have such a tight schedule that I'm really looking forward to not having that tomorrow. So I can do kind of just what you said, just walk around.
Yeah, like give yourself a day.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, back to you. I'm really excited to have you here today. I've been following you on TikTok for a while and now on Instagram as well. And I am so inspired by your career journey. You have worn so many hats, but maybe let's start. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your career journey thus far.
Yeah, first off, I'm very inspired by you too. And I've been following you for a very long time. So I'm excited to be here with you and everything. But yeah, I'm Nick Polina. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan. I have lived in New York for 5 years. And I don't know, I guess I'm a content creator, but I just call myself a tech nerd because I've had like a bunch of different jobs in tech and I don't really know what to necessarily call myself. Right now, I'm a user, or my most recent role was a user researcher for Google Classroom. I was recently laid off, so we can kind of talk about that too. But I'm starting to create my own business and maybe do some freelancing. So that's really what I'm doing right now. In terms of what my career journey was, I always kind of describe it as I really started my tech career when I was in college. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I always said that I wanted to like help create the future strategy for companies, but I didn't know what that meant. Okay. And it was junior year. I still hadn't picked a major. Yeah. And it was like a couple days before the career fair, and all my professors were like, you have to pick a major now. And my intro to information systems professor like pulled up on the screen all of the different companies that were coming to the career fair and showed that for the first time ever, tech companies had like higher paying jobs and more jobs at the career fair than finance did.
Wow.
And I was really liking my intro to informations class, and that kind of just like struck me as like I didn't want to go into finance, and I was like, oh, like I mean, I want to get a job. There's a lot of jobs available, and that sounds interesting. So I asked my friend who was a senior, and she said she loved being an information systems major. She interned at GE and she absolutely loved GE. So I went and changed my major that day, and I went to this Women in Tech event, which I had never gone to any event like that either. And I met one of the C-level individuals that worked at GE, and we just really hit it off. So I applied there the next day, and the rest is kind of history into how I got into tech. But in terms of why I create content around tech, and that's kind of been like a new journey that I've been going on for like the past 2 years. I feel like when I first started at GE and in tech in general, it was like, I'm sure you kind of felt this way too, like 8 or 9 years ago when I first interned or made the decision to go into tech, it was not like shown that really women worked in tech in general. Now I feel like that's really changed, but I felt like the experience when I first like was in tech was pretty male dominated, and honestly they made it seem very like complex. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't have anyone on my side that was willing to kind of explain things to me in a really easy to understand way. So that was really my mission when I started doing content creation, and the rest is kind of history with that as well. So yeah, I don't know if that's like helpful to explain my career trajectory, but worked at GE for 2 years after school, came to Google 5 years ago, and then recently was laid off, and now I'm doing my own thing.
I love it. And then when you started at GE, what was your first position you held?
Yeah, so what I was in was called the Digital Technology Leadership Program.
Okay.
So it's basically this program where they get, I don't know, I would say like 20 out of college students, and they basically want to put them into this like rigorous program where you get to have 4 different jobs over the span of 2 years
Wow.
in tech, which was really cool. And it's basically to create their like next leadership in tech.
Yeah.
But I got to be a software developer, a like I don't know, like data analyst, implementation specialist. I don't really know what to call that one job, but and then Salesforce developer, and then my last role was like a UX research kind of like assistant in a way.
For
Yeah.
those 4 roles, were there others to choose from, or were those the 4 that they were kind of rotating between?
No, so there was so many to pick from, and it kind of was based on your seniority in the program, how well you were doing in your different rotations, and then just like what your own preferences were too.
Wow.
And they were located around the country. I was in GE Aviation, so it was primarily located in Cincinnati, but I did go to South Carolina for one of the rotations too. So
And this is one thing, I went on your LinkedIn and I was kind of blown away, to be honest, about all the role. I was like, this individual is incredible how quickly you can pick up new skills from going from software development to data analyst or whatever that role entailed. And so one of the things I really wanted to ask you is, how was your experience, or how were you able to navigate between roles and pick up those skills? Do you have any advice for picking them up quickly or learning kind of on the fly?
I think that's a really good question. I feel like it was helpful to do this so early on because it just pushed you into that
Yeah.
and really pushed you out of your comfort zone. Was like, you're going to learn all of these different skills. And some people did choose to do like software development role after software development role, but I really wanted to use it as an opportunity to explore all the different like corners of tech, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
But I guess like a story to kind of explain that. When I joined the program, I was one of probably the least technical people that they took on because I was
Okay.
majoring in information systems, which is more, I guess, like the business side of tech rather than computer science, which most of my peers in the program were. So I told them to put me in the most technical role that they had, knowing that it was going to be really hard. But since it was like my first rotation, I kind of wanted to have the space to like mess up a little bit
Yeah.
and then see how it went. But I think I don't even know if I have this type of energy anymore, but I was just like so into it and so excited to learn that before the rotation started, I took like classes on Code Academy and
Yeah.
I was like watching just like YouTube videos and just reading books about, they told me that it would be like JavaScript and like specifically Node.js. So I was
Yeah.
doing a ton of research and learning about that. So when I came into the role, I felt like a little bit more prepared, but I still had never worked in like any sort of software development environment. I didn't know anything about like sprints or like anything like that. So I feel like every day after work, I would like still work on the projects that I was assigned. And I don't know, I guess it paid off because ultimately like the proof of concept that I made for that specific rotation got sent up to the CIO of GE.
Wow.
And then in that role, I was the first rotationer to win like this outstanding DTLP award. So it kind of just gave me the confidence from there to be like, okay, if you really put your energy into learning these concepts, you can do it over and over. And like, I do think after time as well, a lot of these things start to meld together. Even right now in my current user researcher role, my past, or I guess my most recent user researcher role, I was like assigned to interview more technical users because I kind of understood the language because I had originally had been a software developer. So I feel like the way that you like play these roles off of each other, I don't know, it really all comes together and it comes full circle. And I feel like It's helped me understand my peers' roles when you're working on a product team better.
Yes.
But like in terms of advice, I would just say like really put your energy towards looking up these concepts online. And I think that's like what I want to reiterate to people when, and I think you do this really well as well. Like on my content creation, I'm like, I just want people to understand that they can look up these concepts and learn them and do it themselves. And it doesn't need to be this like super exclusive, you have to get into like this school and major in this, and it doesn't need to be that way. I don't know. Do you feel that way?
100%. And I can relate to you so much when you said that a lot of your peers going into kind of the program at GE were computer science graduates or had that background. And you're like, throw me in the most technical roles, which, by the way, I think is, I mean, incredible for you to be so brave, because I think a lot of people, including myself,
I don't even know. I don't know if I would do that now. Honestly.
I know. I feel like when we're starting out in our career, I don't know what it is when we're younger or have, I don't know, taking those risks seem less
scary. I don't know. Yeah.
But they're always the most rewarding. But back to what you were saying, I had a similar experience with, or in the sense of a lot of people that I was around or in my first job were computer science graduates, and I always put them on a pedestal. And this is not taking away from their
like credentials.
Exactly.
Or
like
yeah.
it's amazing. But if you come from a background where you maybe didn't know that this was something you wanted to do, or you discovered it later in life and you don't have time to go back to school for another 4 years or spend that money to go back to college again, it doesn't mean that
you can never learn it.
Exactly. Or that you're less than or anything. That's something that I really had to overcome, because I always put them on a pedestal of like, well, it makes sense why my male colleagues get paid more because they have a computer science background. But
totally.
But Tiff, you're doing the exact same work. Like, really?
Right.
So just kind of, taking a step back, I can completely relate. And that was actually one of my next questions for you was, through holding various roles, were you able to apply some of those skill sets to your current one, which you explained to me that you have. And then I guess one other question I wanted to ask you was, for anyone who maybe isn't certain of what role they're interested in, but they know they want to, kind of to quote what you said, and I can't remind me word for word, but be building the future, essentially. Or what did you say at the beginning?
I feel like, like I wanted to like build the future of companies and like their future strategies and stuff. And I just like didn't know like what that was, but I think it's tech. Like when I really think about it, it's like you're building the future of like what that company will look like.
Yeah. What advice would you give to others who maybe want to do the same, but don't know what role they want to get into?
Yeah. I mean, I think that opportunity is unique, but there is a lot of large companies that have rotational programs. So if you are coming out of school, I would recommend looking into rotational programs, because it just gave me like what you're saying, like it gave me so much confidence just in myself. Obviously, I learned the technical skills of being a software developer, being a UX researcher, but at the same time, I also gained a lot of confidence of, I can learn new skills and ramp up quickly and meet new team members, and like all of these soft skills that really mattered. I felt really confident in myself once I had finished that program, because I had done it 4 times. Mm-hmm. So I think I had, the confidence to even apply to Google at that point, because I had been able to be like, okay, I can do this. Like I can join a new team, not know anyone, and ramp up, and within 6 months,
It gave you a lot of confidence.
Yeah. So I think if you can do a rotational program, do that. But if that's unrealistic, I think the best thing you can do is, look up things online. Honestly, like look up what different roles mean. I don't know if it was someone, I kind of think it might have been you, like that posted all of these different types of roles that you can have that are technical and non-technical in tech, and like really went through each individual role.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out what content creator did that, but I just do research on roles. And then the other thing I would say is I would jump into a role, like figure out what you want to do, like focus on building your skills for that specific role, get that job. And then once you're kind of in a tech company, no one's really going to say, oh, don't try to help out with this other piece. There's been many times, even when I was at Google, where I would do side projects outside of my typical role, just to get a taste of what that would look like and what that felt like being in that specific, or using that skill set, or being in that specific role. So I think there's opportunities if you ask for them. And I feel like a lot of times you don't need to be in a rotational program to experience a different type of role in your own company if you're just like willing to ask. I don't know. What would you say?
I love that. I think you summed it up perfectly. There are opportunities if you are willing to ask for them.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I think a lot of times, especially earlier out in our careers, we are nervous to ask for those or just write it off that no, there's no way my manager will let me do that. But oftentimes, more than not, it's looked at as a positive that you want to take on more responsibility or try out different things or continue to learn.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to the hot topic, not only for this conversation, but for I think the tech world right now, which is there's been so many layoffs going on right now. And I know you recently went through one at Google. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah. So in January, I was laid off from Google. It honestly was a big surprise because I feel like of all of the big tech companies, Google was definitely one that hadn't necessarily mentioned that they were going to do layoffs, or if they had, it was like a little bit more, I don't know, vague, I guess. But I do think a lot of people, I guess I should just say also, I don't believe that the way that Google handled it was bad. I actually feel like I've had so much support from my manager, my manager's manager, my director. Awesome. They're all like helping me try to find a job. And I had like the best 5 years at Google, so I have nothing bad to say about them. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely unfortunate, especially for people like you and I who are really advocating for people to get into the tech field and like trying to show that this is an accessible field that anyone can learn without going to college or whatever it may be, to see all of this happening and to see it happening to my peers or people who I even helped get into the tech field is really unfortunate. But I think one thing that I feel super confident in and why I would still encourage anyone to get into the tech field or learn technical skills like this is I feel so set up for the future. Like whatever that may bring, I feel like I have the skill sets ready to take whatever that might be on. And that's like learning how to work with technical concepts, honestly, and learning how to even understand the basics of coding or the basics of UX design. It's all going to be so important. I kind of think like, while we see tech as this specific industry or this specific field, I don't know if our kids are going to be like, oh, this is tech. Like, I think all jobs are just going to have a technical aspect to them.
Yes.
So while this feels super unfortunate and like, oh no, is tech ever going to be the same? I think it's just going to really spread that technical expertise around to all of these different fields, which needed to happen anyways. And we'll really see that these different industries, maybe it's like healthcare or retail or whatever it is, really get elevated to become more of these like tech-based companies. And I really don't feel like this is going to be a detriment to the people that were laid off. I feel like their skill set is going to carry them forward into the future, and any company that they ultimately end up joining, they're going to be the ones pulling them into the future too. So I feel like it's an exciting time. I'm not looking to go back into corporate anytime soon, but it really like worked out for me personally. I think I was ready for that next challenge, and it was more just a sign for me from the universe or whatever you want to say that like it's time for me to just try something a little different. And I had a good 5 years at Google. So yeah.
I love that. You summed it up so well on how, and that's something that I think I always try and advocate for as well, is tech is, in such an interesting perspective, the way you put it, tech is not just an industry, it is building our future for all industries. Totally. When you think of retail or when you think of nutrition, any industry needs technical individuals or technical soft skills or hard skills, however you want to look at it, to be successful nowadays. They need developers, they need UX, UI researchers, and they need all product managers in order to scale and grow. I mean, I'm definitely sure there's some industries that don't, but it's continuing to go in that direction. And I like that how you put our kids' generation won't look at tech as just an industry, but more so it just encompasses
a skill set
all.
that maybe you should have just as like we thought we should know how to like use Microsoft Word or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Wow, that's I love that perspective. Speaking of your next steps and not looking for another job in corporate, what are your next steps? That's a huge question, I feel like.
It's such a big question. I feel like it's only been 2 months, so I'm definitely still trying to figure it out. But really, what I had set for myself in terms of a timeline was I was hitting the 5-year mark at Google. You know, when I started this content creation stuff, I feel like I was saying this to you just before we even started talking here, but like once you get the taste of that entrepreneurial, like, I don't know, spirit, I guess. And if you have that in you, it's like, wow, I can really like run my own thing and I can manage these partnerships or I can manage like my own time and my own deliverables. And I think that like really excited me. And I'm really using this time to see if I could build my own business. I definitely have that content creation piece, but I want to build my own technical consulting company. And I really wanted to focus on like UX research and UX design for small to medium sized businesses because I think it's the missing piece for a lot of these small to medium sized businesses, honestly, where they're doing all of the things, but they maybe don't have the time, the expertise, the bandwidth to look into UX design, user research, or even like digital marketing, social media. So I really wanted to focus on women-owned small to medium sized businesses and work with them on really what I'm calling a digital makeover, digital glow up.
I like that.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I just got my first client, so that was really exciting.
Congrats.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
so exciting.
So we'll see where it takes me. But I'm really excited to I loved my consulting role at Google. So
Yeah.
I was a UX consultant at Google and I got to work with all of the like top ad clients that Google had. So you could think like a Sephora or Ace Hardware, like different colleges and things like that. And I loved that, like going in and out of companies and really like diving into what they care about and their industry and learning all about it, and then providing UX recommendations that's going to elevate the experience for their users and understanding their users better, like doing rapid research for them. So I wanted to take what I had learned at Google and really just try to apply that to smaller companies that I think could really benefit from it and have that, I guess, scrappy ability to make those changes quickly too.
Yes. Congrats again on your first client. That
Thanks.
is such a big win, and so early on too.
I know. No, it was random. My mom met this person in Florida and found them for me. So shout out to my mom for
I
finding
love
my
it.
first
Shout out to
client,
mom.
But sometimes that's like how it's got to be when you're first starting out.
Yes, it is. It's all about your community and your network and just continuing to build that as you go along.
Totally.
Nick, I feel like I could ask you questions for hours, but, you know, to wrap up this conversation, one question I wanted to ask you that I ask at every conversation is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
That's a good question. I feel like when I think about my younger self, and this is like late teens, early 20s, I guess I just like worried a lot. Like I feel like I was always like questioning my decisions, worrying like who am I going to date, what's my job going to be, is it the right decision to move to New York, all of these things. And I spent so much time worrying, and I wish I just like embraced being like my young 20s and just kind of like lived my life a little bit more. I mean, I definitely lived a lot. I got to do so many things, but I wish I just took away that anxiety and worry that like came with it. And then I guess like you're just like never too busy to I honestly, this is like more personal, I guess, but like I lost my dad a couple months ago, like 6 months ago. So I guess like the biggest advice that I would give to my younger self is just like make time for your parents, like get to know them as much as you can, and like you're never too busy to like call your grandma, call your mom, call your dad. Like I feel like those are like things that you always hear, but like it really is true, and that's definitely advice I would give to my younger self. I don't know.
100%. It's so, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry that I'm sure these past months have been a lot. So I'm sending all my love your way.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a hug right after this podcast
Oh,
after we're done recording. But thank you for sharing that and that advice. And I think it's so true when we're in our early 20s and we're so consumed in our growth and what's going on in our lives, we sometimes, you know, it's like we think we have all the time in the world, which is not the case. And it's, you know, family is everything. So I really appreciate that advice.
Yeah, it's finding the balance between like not worrying too much about the future and like just being very present. And I think that will help. Like just being present.
Yeah. I love that. I needed that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Nick,
This was great.
I know. Nick, I'm going to link everything, all your information down below for your socials, where individuals or companies can find you for
Cool.
your consulting services. All of that is linked down below. And yeah, thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me.